Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, conductor Cailin Marcel Manson and first chair violin Michi Wiancko of the New England Repertory Orchestra, NERO, whose aim is to dismantle the exclusivity of symphonic music and seeks to empower, feature, and champion artists of color and focus on the presence of their orchestral musicians and their work in the greater community.
NERO's going to burn it all down while fiddling at the Shea in Great Falls this weekend, and that's my last dad joke for the day. But first, cows. Lots of cows.
Time for another Local Hero Spotlight with Phil Corman from CISA, the local hero, folks, and Angie Facey from Bree-z Knoll Farm and Our Family Farms Milk. Full disclosure, CISA is an underwriter. I don't know if Our Family Farms, the milk, is an underwriter of NEPM, but I will also fully disclose that apart from when we get raw milk at the farm near us, all of the milk in the Belmonte household is Our Family Farms. Love it. But give us an overview, Phil, of what we're going to experience here today.
Well, we're lucky enough to be here with Angie, and it's really an important time in this dairy business for them because they have put their heart, soul, and a lot of dollars into having control over the processing of their own milk. So what they like to say is it's from cow
to creamery
to cup
to kid.
Because Angie has 3 kids too.
Yeah, nice. And we're in the barn here in Leiden at Bree-z Knoll, and we're looking
breakfast time.
all these cows. How many cows are in here right now?
There's about 125 milking, and then at the end of the barn we have another 20-ish dry cows and springing heifers.
What do you mean by dry cows? They don't drink alcohol?
No, when a cow reaches the end of her lactation, we dry her off. She gets like a 2-month vacation until she's ready to have her next calf.
Uh-huh. Did you grow up doing dairy?
I did. I grew up on a dairy farm in Worcester County. We milked about 90 cows, and then after I graduated college, I met Randy, and the rest is history, and I've been in Leiden ever since.
Is this rumor true that you brought your cows with you?
I did.
Was it a dowry?
It was not a dowry. My parents had decided to exit the business because they were at retirement age, and my younger brother didn't want to milk cows anymore. He just started raising beef on their farm, and we bought all my parents' cows and brought them out here. So we built a barn and milked a lot of cows.
And it's a beautiful drive to come up here to the farm. It's sort of north of Greenfield.
Harrowing if you have an engine like in my terrible car.
Yeah, it's pretty hilly, but you didn't even know about Leiden growing up.
I did not know Leiden existed, so until I met Randy.
What made you want to marry somebody else also in the dairy business?
One would hope it was love.
Apart from love, was that what attracted you? Is there like an online dating app for people who are in dairy?
Meeting dairy?
Yeah.
There is an online dating app, but we got married way before all of that started. I don't know, like being a farm kid, you are a different kind of person. You know, you work 7 days a week and that's expected, and you care for the cows better than you care for yourself. And, you know, I saw that in Randy, and we're still working just as hard, but yes, we love each other very much.
People who raise cows as kids get very attached to their cows, and this is literally the first happy cow story that we've had. Everyone else has had to separate from their herds, and like there's always tears, so it's kind of a really cool thing, but not unexpected when you say like you brought your herd with you.
Yeah.
Yes, there is definitely a lot of heartbreak in this industry. You know, when a cow comes to the end of her productive life, she does go for beef. I wish we could have every single cow die on our farm, you know, but we can't. I did have a really special cow to me. Her name was Reese, and I had to put her down last October. She actually had thyroid cancer. She was 16.
Oh, wow.
She was my baby, yeah. She wasn't milking her last few years. She was just a pet around the farm, but it was time for her.
But overall, you've had a positive cow story. You didn't have to sell the entire herd and go into a new business like so many of the other farmers and people that we've talked to.
But were there
Right.
farmers around where you grew up where that was happening? I mean, clearly that was happening with your farm because your parents were getting out of it. Have you seen that a lot where you were?
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah.
We moved to Spencer in 1981, and there were 25 dairy farms. And 20 years later, there were less than 3. And I don't even know if there's any now. It's all over New England.
Phil Corman from CISA.
In the last 25 years in Massachusetts, we've lost 2 out of 3 dairy farms. And that is happening throughout New England, as Angie stated. And a lot of it comes down to federal government policy, again, supporting larger farms getting larger.
Because I think a lot of people might not know this. The federal government controls milk prices. So when a lot of people, progressives even, think that if the government were have more controls in a more socialistic way, it could be great. However, in the milk industry, it's not great for small farms.
Yeah, Angie and I were talking about this before, and while we don't quite understand it, Angie was sharing with me that in the 30s, that's when price controls started for milk nationally, and it did sort of help small farms, but at this point, everyone agrees it has sort of driven the smaller dairy farm out of business.
They set the price that we get for our raw milk, and they don't take into consideration any of our cost of production. Farms in the western part of the country have economies of scale. Things are cheaper out there. Land is right around their farm. Here, we have to drive 8 to 10 miles to our corn land, and land is getting scoffed up by housing developments and whatnot. And we do rent some land, and some people want hundreds of dollars an acre, and to grow corn silage, we just can't afford that.
One way that the local dairy industry has tried to fight back against the industry writ large is through our family farms. So it's not you, and you're the general manager of our family farms. It's farms plural. It's more than one farm getting together cooperatively to make this happen. Tell us a little bit about how Our Family Farms works.
Yes, so Our Family Farms started in 1997. We started with 8 farms, actually. So all of our milk was delivered to Pioneer Dairy, and it was bottled, just Our Family Farms milk in the container. But it was done at another facility. So we had some control, but it was really expensive to have the segregated route deliver to them. So it wasn't really profitable. Over time, Pioneer went out of business. It was difficult to find someone else that would work with us. We ended up having to work with Guidas, and we worked with them for a long time. They had a great quality product, but unfortunately they couldn't segregate our milk. He's coming in here. We'll have to take out.
Here comes a tractor. Pause in that story.
Yeah.
It's coming to get us.
And this is like the really slow tractor.
What's in this tractor, Angie?
It's called TMR. It's a total mixed ration. So it's corn silage, haylage, and grain all mixed up. So every bite the cow takes will be the same.
It's the feed truck.
Basically, yeah. The cows don't have as many options as a normal food truck, but they like what they get.
I love a good food truck myself.
So as I was saying, Guidas, we worked with them for a long time, and then last summer they decided to not work with us anymore, which put us in a real bind because our creamery wasn't finished. So we had 30 days notice. Fortunately, Midland in New York stepped in and they were able to help us, but we lost a lot of sales because we didn't have all of our products on the shelf.
I remember that. I would go to the store and be like, what the hell? Where's all Our Family Farms milk?
I know. So, we squeaked by, and then we finally opened our creamery on April 5th, a few short weeks ago, and it's been crazier than ever.
Is that why the new half gallons are in a different type of container? I brought that home yesterday to my family, and everyone was like, what is this milk? But they saw they still saw the same logo on there, but it's in a different type of container.
So because we had to go from the beautiful cardboard packaging, we didn't have the extra $200,000 to put in a separate filling line for the cardboard. We had to have something that would stand out. I did so much research, and I found the PET plastic, and it's recyclable and it's beautiful. I can't wait till we have flavored milk in it because it's going to look so pretty. But we've had a lot of positive feedback on the container. People really like it, so hopefully your family did too.
Yeah, had some this morning.
So I know, Angie, while it came to fruition last month, this is something your family and Our Family Farms has wanted to do for 20 plus years. Why is it so hard to do this?
The infrastructure cost is tremendous. In the beginning, when we were a co-op of 8, if we pooled all of our milk together and built a dairy or a creamery off farm, we would be considered a pool plant right away. So we would have to pay the federal government about $20,000 a month just because we were pooling our milk. By having it on farm at Bree-z Knoll Farm and owned by Bree-z Knoll Farm, we don't have to pay the federal milk marketing order. Once we reach Bree-z Knoll Farm's capacity of production, then we can bring in Gould Farm milk. They're the other farm in our co-op to supplement whatever sales we have over our production.
So there's only 2 family farms left?
Sadly, there are only 2 left, yeah.
Is it because of that federal pool that there's only 2 left, or is there other reasons?
Well, yes. I mean, low milk price has caused some to go out of business, or retirement. They're at retirement age and there's no younger generation coming along. And through attrition, we've, kind of weaseled our way down to 2, unfortunately.
You can go to any mainline supermarket and get milk. Isn't most milk somehow part of the local milk system?
Absolutely. Massachusetts is actually a milk deficit state. So I think we can only produce, I think the number was around 20% of our milk needs in Massachusetts. So we have to bring in milk from Vermont, New Hampshire, New York. But yes, it is basically in this region. The difference with us is that We own the creamery, and when you purchase our family farms milk, you're directly impacting our farms right here in Franklin County. That it will help us stay in business. It will help us keep open space. We do business with so many local vendors. I can't buy grain on Amazon, our vet is local, our fuel is local, all those kinds of people we do business with locally. And we're the only milk processing plant in Franklin County. So it's kind of exciting because your milk is super hyper local. Our closest store, I believe, is Foster's, and we're like 8 miles from them. That's pretty cool.
We've been talking about the federal controls of the prices. What causes it to fluctuate like that? Is it supply and demand? And is it the big farms out west are just pumping the market filled with milk, or how does it work?
So I took a class in college on milk pricing, and I still don't understand it.
So we're not going to learn it today, folks.
And honestly, most people don't really understand. There's so many factors, exports, the value of the dollar, how much cheese is in storage, how much butter. It's just really, really confusing. But like a 2% increase in milk production can tank our price overnight, practically.
What about a skim percent increase in milk production? Not that kind of 2%. I see. Don't drink 2% or skim. Whole milk all the way.
So there's 2 state programs that are helpful to dairy farms, and one is the dairy tax credit, and then the other is the food security infrastructure grants. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about how they impact you in a good way.
Yes. So we petitioned the state back in 2007 and 8 for the dairy tax credit. So essentially, we get a tax credit at the end of the year for staying in business. That has probably kept us in business. Without that, we wouldn't have been able to keep going.
When the cost for you to produce the milk is less than the price you can get from the federal price, then the tax credit kicks in.
Correct. If we're getting a really high price, then we don't get the tax credit. And then one of the best things that came out of COVID was the Food Security Infrastructure Grant Program. When it was announced like that May or June of 2020, I just thought, oh, wow, this was written for me. So I spent hours and hours writing applications. I submitted one for Bree-z, Knoll, and for our family farms, and together we got $1 million, which, wow, to the average person, $1 million is just an absorbent amount of money, but for our farm, it's really not. The creamery, we put every dime of that into it, and then, unfortunately, with cost overruns and supply chain issues, everything took so much longer, so much money, and we're about $800,000 over, so.
We are going to be debating the farm bill again. Is there any movement towards supporting smaller farms like Bree-z Knoll here in Leiden on a federal level?
I think the challenge always is that 3% of the farms in the United States account for almost 47% of all production of everything, not dairy, but just everything. And then the bottom 82% in size produce 18%. So the outsized farms have outsized impact, and the Farm Bill tends to favor commodities, which are things that can sit on the shelf for years, versus, I'll say it, food that needs to be consumed within a certain time period. So there is movement afoot, and there are groups like the National Agricultural Sustainability Organizations working together, but it's an uphill battle. This is the only beverage that comes with protein and is grown by our neighbors. So I think it's so important that the land mass that is controlled by dairy farms, even though we're down to under 120 in Massachusetts, they're just a vital backbone of agriculture in the state.
Yes, every milk around is local, but our family farms is supporting farms that farms that you can come see, every single one of my cows. You can pet Molly if you want.
Yes!
Don't attempt.
Let's go!
Okay.
Hey, Molly. Which one's name is Ninja?
Ninja.
Hey, Ninja.
Yes,
We should train together.
On guard. I'll let you try my Wu-Tang style.
Her baby's name is Ninjago.
Oh, the kids are gonna love that one.
Yes, we name all of our cows. I feel it helps us learn them better, and they each have a personality. Some of them love you, some of them want to run away from you. Most of them want to lick you to death.
It looks like you have several varieties of cow here, too.
We do have 3 breeds here at Bree-z Knoll Farm. We have the traditional black and white Holsteins, which is what I grew up with. And my husband's family had Holsteins and Brown Swiss. And I always wanted a Brown Swiss growing up. And then when I came out here and we got them and I had to try to get them pregnant, I wasn't as excited. Or trying to bottle feed them and train them on a bucket when they're little is really, really difficult.
They have opinions.
Oh, yeah, they're really stubborn. So, and then the red cows are the Ashiers. One of our employees, Ashley, that works for us, has her cows here as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, I want to show you the robots.
Yeah, let's go look at the
Robots.
Let's look at
Robots and cows.
milk robots.
This is the best day ever.
Yes, we're about to watch a robot milk a cow. More with Angie Facey from Bree-z Knoll Farm and Our Family Farms Milk in Leiden coming up.
And later in the show, Maestro Cailin Marcel Manson and first chair violin Michi Wiancko of the New England Repertory Orchestra, otherwise known as NERO, who are working on burning down all the racial and societal barriers surrounding symphonic music. They're playing the Shea this weekend, and I'm too excited to actually speak, but you're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Trying to find people that want to milk cows is difficult, and it would take 20 man hours a day, and that was just too much. So we started building the robotic barn actually in 2018, right after my husband had an accident, and we realized we were up to 190 cows, and we just couldn't handle that anymore. So we have robotic milkers, we have robotic scrapers, so they're basically like a Roomba for our barn.
Oh, nice. So we just saw one of the cows doing its business over there.
Yes, so the Roomba will go take care of Camelot's poop in a minute. And then we have Juno, which is a feed pusher, and Juno does it on the hour, every hour, pushes up the feed, so it encourages the cows to get up and eat more, and that's how they make more milk.
Angie Facey from Bree-z Knoll Farm here in Leiden, where we're surrounded by cows. We can smell the dairy air. So this is the milk robot.
So
It's called a Lely astronaut.
Lely astronaut.
Lely astronaut. That's so cool.
It's funny because when I graduated college in 2001, we saw a video of a milking robot in the Netherlands, and it was like, oh, that would never be mainstream, and here we are 20 couple years later, and we have them.
So what we're looking at is this, giant red, what looks like a robotic computer thing, and then we can see the four legs of the cow, an emergency off switch, and we can see the cow's udders with...
Udder.
Oh, it's one udder?
Yeah, one udder.
And teats. Teats, right. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in New England public media. How does it find the teats?
It has a laser. A laser.
It's in essence a sophisticated heat beam which we called a laser.
And it finds
Dr.
the teats?
Evil did not invent it. But yes, you see the red line that, she's
Oh my God. We're looking at the red laser finding the teats so that this robot can hook up to it.
It's spraying her. It's post-dipping her because she just finished, but there's somebody, I think Josie's on her way in when this one goes out, so we can watch start to finish. But so when the cow calves for the first time, we put a collar on her with a transponder, so that when she walks into the box, the robot knows who she is. The transponder gives us rumination, so we know if she's eating well or not. It gives us milk temperature, the actual robot activity level, so that's why you saw the breeder here. He was here breeding a couple cows that were going crazy last night. It gives us so much information. So when they first calve, we bring them in and we actually, it's like a video game. We have to kind of tell the arm where to go, and then the robot remembers where her teats are and uses the laser to help find her quarters.
This is crazy.
This is so neat.
And the other part I think is true is that
We're getting sprayed with all sorts of stuff that's seemingly water, not
that the
milk.
cows choose to come to get milked when they're ready.
So they just line up when they're ready. Yeah, this cow, Josie, seemed eager to get in here.
Yeah, she's got her leg in the wrong spot. But
Josie, move your leg.
you get some cows that are actually really smart, and they're like, hey, if I go in there, I get a little bit of grain. So then they want to keep coming back in.
The laser is activated. It's latched on now. We watched the laser latch onto the teats. That was amazing.
Attach. We call it attach.
Attach, not latch.
Yeah.
That's nursing mothers.
Yes. Attached. The unit has attached. Milk is going into the weigh jar in here, and this will measure the weight of the milk. It will also take a little sample and give us her somatic cell count, and then it will also tell me her fat and protein level. So if she's a fresh cow and her fat's like really high, I can tell if she has ketosis, because ketosis for cows is really bad.
And then you get
we
like a
can treat her.
readout of like how all the cows are doing, and you can
Yep.
take care of
I actually have an app on my phone.
Wow.
And I get notifications on my watch. Like if someone's in heat, I'm like, oh, ping. I know who to call. You know, I call the breeder. So, you know, before it was hard to treat the cows, but now we can easily treat them. So like if a cow has a fever, if a cow has high somatic cell, we'll use aspirin instead of going right for antibiotics. But it's really nice that we get all that information because we're able to manage our cows more.
What did you, when you were a kid doing this, did you just hand milk these and have to like feel it out the old fashioned way or what?
No, I'm not that old. No, we had a parlor, so, you know, we could milk 4 on each side, so 8 at a time. Yeah, so the computer says they think she's going to make 36 pounds this milking, and it will show, like, this is what each quarter is making.
So she's already up to 12.4.
12.4, yep.
That's coming fast and furious.
Yes. You know, for a first calf heifer, she's milking pretty well.
Well done, Josie. You're doing great.
Although it is really weird that my kids are going to never have to milk cows.
Just make them do it.
Yeah, for fun.
Yeah. Get them a bucket, put them out there.
It's called getting in touch with your history.
Do you choose, or do they choose their preferred music as they're being milked?
We don't have any music playing. Yeah, we should.
You need a DJ for the barns.
They do like country music more than like hard rock music. I think they like classical music.
Yeah. They like Mozart.
Yeah.
Stop it.
All right, well, before we go, we should go check out the baby cows, because
Yeah.
Cailin loves baby animals, as do we all, I think.
I mean, who doesn't love baby animals? Everyone needs more cute in their life.
These are big babies compared to the goat babies that we saw.
Well, they're 80 to 100 pounds when they're born. So.
Wow.
So this is Raspberry.
Hi, Raspberry.
Her mom's name is Rhubarb, and she's related to Reese, my old girl that we had to put down. So I'm super happy about that. I have lots of offspring from her. This is actually a distant cousin of hers. She is out of a cow named Rainbow, and I haven't come up with an R name yet that I like. Of course,
Randy Rainbow. Do you know him?
Super callous, fragile, egocentric, braggadocious.
He's so good.
I thought you meant my Randy.
No, but you're Randy and Rainbow. There you go.
I don't know if you would appreciate a cow named after him, but yeah, they're super sweet.
Well, let's go see the processing before we say our farewells.
Okay.
And this is the new processing facility right here. The barn looks new.
So it actually was a dry cow barn that we converted to the creamery. This is my office help, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. I'm Monty.
Police? Yes. Police and Phil. You can peek in.
Oh, those do look great.
Yeah, these are the new half gallons.
Yeah.
And you got a new design on the label too, I noticed.
Yes.
It pops a little
so
bit more.
on the labels, each cow is actually one of our cows that's hand drawn by an artist.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
So they're running the 1% right now, and the Swiss on the front is Wyoming.
Who's on my whole milk that I get?
Guinness, one of my favorites.
Nice.
Yes.
Tastes like Guinness. Creamy, delicious.
I wanted to put like the cows' names on the label, but I'm like, Guinness. I probably shouldn't put that on the front label. I don't know if there's any copyright issues or whatnot, but
So this is just like a bottling facility. So like it gets
Yep.
into the tanks, into the different percentages, and then
So yeah, we start with the raw milk on the dairy side, and we pump it over to a raw tank on this side, on the creamery side, and then they pasteurize it. They separate it so it's skim and cream, and then we bottle the skim. Then we add to make 1%, 2%, and then standardized whole. And we just started making some new products, which our family farms has never had, so we're super excited. We made half and half and heavy cream.
good.
Good.
Like whipping cream?
Heavy cream's really good in coffee too.
And if you have one of those frothing things, brevets are the way to go.
Oh, yummy.
And can I put in a request for when you do the flavored milk? Can you do coffee?
Yeah.
Oh, we would love to.
Yes,
So
please.
flavors are next on our list, but we have to perfect the recipe.
Chocolate milk doesn't come from brown cows? That's what I grew up thinking.
Does it? I need more brown cows. Wait, so do my red cows have strawberries?
Yes.
Oh, all this time.
Well, thank you for this wonderful tour, Angie Facey, from Bree-z Knoll Farm here in Leiden and from Our Family Farms.
Thank you for letting us pet your cows.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
This has been utterly delightful.
Oh my God, just like,
I've been waiting the whole time.
I bet you have.
just like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you thought of that when it was announced we were going
Oh,
to
yeah, for
a
sure.
dairy farm. You're like, I have to get this one in
Yeah.
no matter what.
That and the derriere one, I couldn't
Yes.
resist.
The interview has been very moving for me.
Thank you.
And they all joined in by the end. Up next, conductor Cailin Marcel Manson and the first chair, violin, Michi Wiancko of the New England Repertory Orchestra, NERO, burning down the house and the society that built that house at the Shea Theater this weekend.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. The New England Repertory Orchestra continues its work championing the voices of diverse composers and performers with a world premiere Symphony No. 1, Banishing Grief by acclaimed pianist and composer Felix Jarrar, followed by one of the most moving symphonies of the 20th century, Dmitri Shostakovich's Symphony No. 5.
With these two pieces, NERO celebrates the victory of the human spirit against depression. Banishing Grief tackles mental health as well as a social justice issue and how it relates to processing grief. And Symphony No. 5 follows an individual through tragedy into hopefulness. Both pieces will be performed at the Shea Theater in Great Falls this weekend.
And joining us from NERO are the conductor Cailin Marcel Manson and first chair violin Michi Wiancko. Welcome to the Fabulous 413.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. There's local connections with Jarrar. Is that part of the reason that you wanted to collaborate with him, or just general admirers of his work?
It's interesting. Felix and I worked pretty closely with Barn Opera, which is another, grassroots but like professional music organization in Brandon, Vermont.
That you helped to found, right?
Yep. I've been the founding music director. But what's really interesting is that Felix was an undergrad at Marlborough College studying piano and composition, and I was the music director at the Putney School around the time when he was finishing at Marlborough, and our paths didn't cross at all. Completely, just nope. But then all of a sudden, years later, I end up being at Clark, and he ends up being the assistant music director for a period of time at Barn Opera, and he was writing a number of chamber operas and art song cycles, and I'm like, NERO is coming. I'm like, we're going to start writing and start commissioning new pieces. And I thought then, I'm like, next season we need to have you write something for us. And he had never written a symphony before, but it was something that he always had wanted to do. And he actually asked me if it could be a vocal symphony. I said yes. And then he asked me if he could write the text. And I said, absolutely, let's just work it. And it came from that.
Is the text in English, or what language is it in?
Yes, it's in English.
And you are an excellent singer as well. So this is something that's totally in your area of expertise. Cailin.
Oh yeah. Voice is my first love, but the marriage of a song and symphony is something that I really, really, really love. I don't know if we're going to do any of those Mahler ones anytime soon, but this one is nice. And I love Mahler.
Yeah, but the look that you had on your face when you said Mahler was just beautiful. I wish that over the course of radio we could actually convey that, but hopefully they understand by my excitement what it was.
They could hear it in the fry tone.
So we've been jokingly saying NERO burning it down and New England Repertory Orchestra. That is not our joke. That is your joke, Cailin, right? Like this is your brainchild, right? Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the purpose of the orchestra.
Yes.
Tell us about the mission of what made you want to start this orchestra, call it this, and what its objective is to do.
So it's funny because there were a number of different incarnations of what this might have been. And this really did start from a number of conversations that I had with many local musicians, actually people all over the country during the sort of shutdown of the pandemic. And we originally wanted to try to find a way for all of the different, not just orchestra, but opera and chamber music and theater to have something that was more akin to, I'm just going to say it's more akin to what I experienced as what's called a fest singer in the German house system, was something that we don't really even have in the States. This idea that you could have full-time employment and really be ensconced living in a community full-time and become recognizable as one of the living working artists of that community.
Once again, one of the beautiful things about having state-funded art programs.
Yeah. In Germany. We don't do that very well here. here, but
no. And so it became evident that the orchestra would be the first iteration of that to come to fruition. And we were trying to figure out, it was like New England Repertory Opera, New England Repertory this, but now I was like, orchestra, let's start with the orchestra. And we're like, oh, that's NERO. And at first I was like, well, NERO is Italian for black, honey. So I'm with it. I'm with it.
Yes.
And they were like, okay, we'll feel that. But then someone was like, well, but we were looking at, it came back to when I was trying to going to graphic designers to help have them design the logo. And they came up with this logo that had NERO and the violin. And so the principal bassist was like, wait a minute, that's going to beg the joke, right? So I'm like, well, let's just turn it to this kid. He's like, do they have flames that can shoot from the violin? I'm like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm like, let me ask. And they put flames. They're like, oh, it's burning. I was like, look, we're just going to turn right into that skid and we're going to go with it. And truth be told, that, there were, even amongst artists of color, artists of marginalized communities, there's always this amongst us, how we're going to approach it, right? How are we going to try to infiltrate the industry and change from the inside, or are we going to come from the outside and completely jettison it? And you do need, even civil rights in this country, you need pressure from both ends to make it work. I, being someone that kind of was on the fast track in my 20s, through what we would call a talent pipeline, I had a real soul searching moment around 2008 where I realized that I was offered a real major opportunity that everyone who's a singer wants. And I realized that it was not congruent at all with where I was going. I was offered a contract in a major opera house for a role that I'd already done 50 times, but it was for 5 years from that day. And I was like, it's 2008. You're offering me something in 2013. I might not even be the same person, the same artist, but this is the way the industry works. And so for me, that was the bellwether. It's like, okay, I actually need to get back in control, get back and center myself into my why, into my purpose. And this work is really at the heart of the purpose. It's actually, there isn't a divide between the people in the community and the professionals. We actually are the same, but something about the way we've structured high culture in our sort of cultural paradigm separates that. And I'm not going to say that some of it is the establishment's fault, but some of it is our fault as artists. We want to buy into it because that's how we make money, that's how we prove ourselves, but we actually don't need to do that. But we need organizations like NERO that show us that there's another way, that there's another model, that you can actually be an undergraduate in music school, play at a really high level, and have an orchestra say, yes, we believe in you, and you can play with us. That you don't have to prove yourself by going through all these competitions and all these things just to be accepted in this art form. So I know that was long-winded, but that's the idea.
Worth it. Worth every minute.
That's Cailin Marcel Manson, who is the conductor and one of the founders of the New England Repertory Orchestra. The first chair violin is somebody who went to the highest upper echelons of musical education and still shares the same mission of, I guess, in some ways demystifying, making more egalitarian this type of music. Michi Wiancko, who lives in Gill and is also the founder of Antenna Cloud Farm, which you will be hearing a lot about as the season progresses throughout the course of the summer. But as Cailin was saying, I went to an open rehearsal of the orchestra at the Shea, which isn't something that people who aren't musicians often get to do. And it was amazing to see behind the veil how it works. And then the performance itself was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen at that theater last year. I'm very excited. Again, this Saturday at 7 o'clock, you pay what you can, a suggested donation of $5, trying to make it very open. But you, Michi, went to Juilliard. You're part of Yo-Yo Ma's Silk Road Ensemble.
Rhiannon Giddens Silk Road.
Rhiannon Giddens now Silk Road Ensemble. Although
she's artistic director, Pulitzer notwithstanding.
Yes, just got a Pulitzer yesterday. There was some new news about the Silk Road Ensemble that I couldn't hear very well, but was in the newscast right before this, and I almost scared you to death that Rhiannon Giddens was no longer the artistic director. But what drives you to share this mission, both with Antenna Cloud Farm and what you're doing, and with NERO Orchestra? You could theoretically play with anyone, anywhere.
Well, what Cailin just described in his journey really, really resonates with me. Like, I think that for anybody who's doing the work of activation or trying to push back against the status quo of any industry or culture, I feel like it's almost a given that that person has to go through sometimes a quite intense and difficult period of like inspection of one's own trajectory, right? Like, we grew up in the Western classical music world on this track, like fast track to success or whatever that might mean according to, given the existing parameters. But in order to say no to a gig like that, like a high-end opera company or whatever, like, I resonate with that so much. I spent a big part of my life saying no, and it's so painful. It's stuff that you're trained to say yes to, stuff that you've spent your whole life getting ready to say yes to and hoping to be offered. You start saying no to that because it's not in alignment with how you want the music world to look like, what you want your contributions to be to the music world. And so that difficulty in making that decision after you do it, for anybody who's out there going through this right now, if you can say no a few times and just like get that muscle, exercise that muscle, it gets easier and easier. And it also starts to become very joyful once you start deciding to do things with your life that are in alignment with your deepest belief system. Then all kinds of worlds start opening up. Like, we met. The NERO is maybe one of the, besides, playing with Rhiannon and Silk Road, NERO is the only other truly, I'd say, Western classical music thing I do. This is the first time I'll be playing Shostakovich Symphony No. 5 since I was at Juilliard, playing with the Juilliard Symphony, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, there's a reason why NERO is my sort of classical. It's my, my drop into the classical world to get really, really deep into this repertoire. Cailin is obviously very talented, but also very strict maestro, but also very joyful. I'd call you joyfully strict.
Like
the
Poppins,
yeah, right. Like, the standards are crazy high. Anybody who was at that rehearsal sees that, and then the concerts are very, it's very intense. Like, we're bringing something very musically intense and I think pretty amazing to the table.
How did you meet?
When? Oh my God!
No one remembers.
Another member, somebody Facebooked me who was in the orchestra.
It was the principal bassist, Jamie.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, lives in Gill. Y'all should talk.
Yeah, he saw the Antenna Cloud Farm website, and then my website was like, I feel a connection. And then I checked out your website, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then I think we what did I say? We slid in each other's DMs. Is that what kind of as they say? We slid up in the DMs and we just started talking. And then the only concert you could do with us was the season finale last year because of your schedule and which was also like the absolute great concert to do. I mean, the Nahina Stara harp concerto was like just an amazing piece.
I've never seen somebody play a harp so percussively and used it as a percussion instrument. It blew my mind.
But I think that's the other thing too, like that like you're talking about joyfully strict. But I feel like I'm gonna like dovetail this a little bit in the sense that I don't care. I'm 40 and I'm fabulous. I turned 40 this year, and it's my 20th year conducting. I made my conducting debut back in March at Carnegie Hall. But what was really interesting about that was that everyone that was up on that stage, all of those choirs essentially, aside from like some of the ringers they brought in to balance some of the sound, were all non-auditioned choirs, right? My mother was singing in the alto 2 section. There were grandparents and kids, and they sang at an extremely high level that even the professional orchestra, like, this was an amazing Verdi Requiem. And I think, when I think about what NERO did in that concert, I've known Jordan since he was a teen. I'm Jordan's godfather. And I've seen him through all of that trajectory. And so there's that family feeling, that communal feeling about what NERO does that makes it special. I think, you do get people that play with each other for 20 years and they kind of got to know each other, but I think that's what makes what we've built together very, very special is that it's concentric circles. We all enjoy being together. We know there's a lot of work to do. But when we invite these artists in, I mean, even with the ones that are singing, Maria Brea, just sang. She was the first Venezuelan soprano to sing, first Venezuelan artist to sing with the Boston Phil.
She opened her mouth in rehearsal. I'm like, you practice the music. So Felix's symphony, just to interrupt for 1 second, is just mind-blowingly gorgeous.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I defy anybody to not ugly cry
Yeah,
during it.
yeah.
And then in rehearsal, so we're, I'm like focused on bowings and fingerings, and let's just kind of execute this piece that we've never seen or heard or played before. Get into rehearsal. Within 5 minutes, she sings something. The second she opened her mouth, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even understand what's happening right. Like, I can't believe the level of this singing and the beauty of her voice and the amazingness of this symphony is very moving.
Yeah, and again, it felt like a family.
Yeah.
Like that she walked in, gave me a hug. We loved because we worked together before, and we just had this. There was that feeling that everyone is so connected, and that we really are there. We're there to make music, but we're also like loving on each other through making music, and that you don't find everywhere. And it actually should be that way everywhere. I think if it was, people would see, it's not just see themselves in the music or see themselves in the performances, but they would know that it's for them. And no matter what their level or their degree of involvement is. And it comes from us. I firmly believe that. It comes from us, like what we want to do and how we want to do it.
Well, I believe if you come on Saturday, you may get a little glimpse of that love through music. With the NERO Orchestra, New England Repertory Orchestra, performs at 7 o'clock at the Shea Theater. Coming up, more with the artistic director and conductor, Cailin Marcel Manson, and first-year violin, Michi Wiancko. You're listening to the Fabulous 413. I think Michi's going to play a little bit on the other side. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Free time. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We are here with members of the New England Repertory Orchestra, otherwise known as NERO, conductor and artistic director Cailin Marcel Manson, and first chair violin Michi Wiancko, who I think is about to play for us, and I am so excited.
Tell us what you're going to play, Michi, because this is kind of the direction you go in with Antenna Cloud Farm, too, taking these, I guess, symphonic instruments or instruments that we think of you studying at Juilliard and improvising around them, which doesn't happen as often as you might think.
Right. To answer your first question, Monty, I have no idea what I'm about to play.
Yes.
I've been improvising for a while, but more recently, because, I run Antenna Cloud Farm, music retreat and summer festival series, and now Institute. I have 2 young children. I teach, I perform. I'm left with very little time to be like nurturing my solo career, which used to be my main focus in my before days. So I decided that I get a lot of joy being completely present when I'm with my instrument. I typically have my 5-string violin, which I think you've seen me play. I plug it in. I use guitar pedals, like effects and stuff. I don't have my fun little gadgets with me today. So I just am going to improvise for maybe a minute, if that's cool.
Of
Perfect.
course.
Great.
Michi Wiancko from the New England Repertory Orchestra and the Silk Road Ensemble. Gorgeous. That's Michi Wiancko on the violin, part of the NERO Orchestra, playing for cheap or free at the Shea this Saturday. And we're also joined by the conductor and artistic director, Cailin Marcel Manson. I'm not going to make you sing a solo here, but you do have a gorgeous I mean, if you wanted to, you absolutely could. But you did mention you were conducting at Carnegie Hall recently.
Yes.
There's the last few months. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Mid-America Productions has been running a Carnegie Hall residency since 1984 or something like this. This is the 40th season. And they approached me 2 years ago to conduct for them. We were in the middle of pandemic. We're coming out of it, so I was like, "Oh, I'm not ready. Let's wait and see." But the concert was the opening of their 40th season, and I conducted Verdi's Requiem, one of the most iconic big pieces.
It's beautiful.
Of
even if you aren't enamored with masses like I am.
Yeah. It'll rock your world. I mean, and honestly, come on. You come into Carnegie Hall and you got 4 antiphonal trumpets like blaring over the audience's heads. Like you're like, yes, it's heavy metal. I mean, I remember when we had the dress rehearsal and I gave the one downbeat for the Dies Irae and I said, you get once to the choir, and they just had that shockwave thing, like, what just happened to me? It was, I've conducted that piece a number of times. I actually conducted it for my 15th anniversary back in 2018 at the 1894 Auditorium in Northfield, actually. Mm-hmm. We did that. It was 5 choirs together for there. But anyway, it was weird. It felt like, because of all the people on the stage, it felt like a homecoming. And I didn't realize until I came home and my husband had asked me about sort of the performance. And so he's like, so tell me something about like the history of the Verdi Requiem, like at Carnegie Hall. And I'm like, I don't know. Let's look it up. And so we looked up the performance history, which you can for anything that happens at Carnegie Hall. And we found that the Verdi Requiem had been performed 82 times since it opened in 1891, 82 times. And of those times, only 2 black people had ever conducted that work. The first person was John Robertson, who's currently teaching at Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida, which my husband is from, interestingly enough. And that was March 19th, 1972. So I was the second black person to conduct that piece in the history of Carnegie Hall almost 50 years later. So it's just an interesting thing. Interesting thing.
I have a long question, and we're going to try and make it as short as possible.
That's good.
I feel like symphonic works with vocal are pretty rare. But do you see NERO as an avenue to open up people's experiences by using more vocal pieces, since voice is the most accessible instrument that anyone has? Interesting. I think I'm going to double down a little bit on that. It's not that symphonic pieces are with voices are rare. It's just that, I'm just going to be perfectly honest, they can be very expensive to put on because you have to hire vocal soloists or you have to get choirs in to do it. And what I think NERO has done a really great job of is that we constantly partner actually with community choruses all the time. Like we're performing a bucket list piece called the Dvorak Stabat Mater. I saw it for 2 nights.
For literally 2 nights, but we're working with the Keene Chorale and the Concord Chorale, 2 community choirs in New Hampshire, to do it. And so there is that connectivity so that we can get people to see it. And here's the other thing. They're community choirs. Those people are the community, and they're going to have their families come and hear that work. And NERO's at the nexus of that.
NERO is going to be at the Shea Theater this Saturday, 7 o'clock, banishing grief, exploring all of the emotional hardships that we all have been facing via music. I basically cannot wait for this event. The artistic director and conductor, Cailin Marcel Manson, has been joining us, as has Michi Wiancko, my neighbor up the hill in Gill from Antenna Cloud Farm, and we'll be hearing a lot more about that as that season progresses. Tomorrow in the fabulous 413, there's been no shortage of language-based drama locally, and we'll take 2 of the most recent cases head-on. We'll talk with former East Hampton superintendent candidate Vito Perrone about his take on the, quote, ladies controversy, and whether or not that was actually what cost him a job opportunity.
And we'll talk with Merriam-Webster editor Emily Brewster about the word field, in which Smith College's social work department has decided to stop using it due to its connections to slavery and colonization.
Our director is Tony, our silent glue Dunn.
Our engineer is Betsy on her 3rd outfit, Cordis.
Our technical team is Bart, think that'll end poorly, Rankin. Kara, you're going to put that in the script today, aren't you, Foster? and punk rock Dubé.
Musical thanks to Spouse, Happy Valley Guitar Orchestra, Suitcase Junket, Michi Wiancko, and Cailin Marcel Manson. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. See you tomorrow
on the Fabulous 413.